Okay, we are live. So welcome back to Goaldigger, Finding Your Voice. I'm Kate Luzio, founder and CEO of Luminary. I took a little bit of a hiatus from Goaldigger to give everybody a break in August, and we are now back. So I am really excited about having a mentor, because I do consider Jen a mentor, and now a friend, Jen Shap, who I just basically call a Google veteran. And we're going to hear all about her journey and how she found her voice. And I will give a shout out to Miss Mita Malik. So Mita is one of our amazing Luminary members. She's on our advisory board, and she is actually the one who brought Jen into our space and introduced us. And it was a love fest after that. So welcome, Jen.
Thank you. And yes, I have to plus one on the Mita comment, who is, one of the things that I have been so just moved by is the power of connections. And she and you and so many other people in your network, outside of your network, there is such beauty in the giving and the generosity of connections. And I thank her for introducing me to you and to Luminary, and for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Well, I've been waiting to have you on, and I wanted to wait till like back to school, back to work, as we're calling it, so that, because I think, again, it's now September, right? We had this 3 months in the beginning where everybody like put their heads down. We think it's not going to last for a very long time. Clearly, we were all wrong. Then we go into summer. And I think, you could listen to Jamie Dimon, and he's like, production has gone down. Now we're back, right? And it may not look like we thought it was for the fall, especially for working moms, but we're back. So I want to dive in, to your journey. You've been at Google for 16 years, am I right?
16, yeah.
A long time
It's a long time.
But can we start a little bit before that, as far as like what led you to tech, what led you to that Google opportunity, and then we'll go from there.
I love it. Yes. So 16 years, and I did have I would say a pretty healthy career prior to that. That's, how old I am. But,
Same boat. So
there was life before Google, and it's actually funny. I was just sharing this story with somebody yesterday, and every time I tell the story of my journey, I sort of have this appreciation for how I got to where I am. So I was a theater major in college, and I had thought that I was interested in pursuing, or I was interested, but I thought I had it in me to pursue a life and a career in the theater and as an actor. And I was living on the West Coast, which is where I'm from. After college for about a year, and I was interning at a theater. And I moved to New York City, and I was with all intention of making a go at it. And pretty quickly, I realized that the life of a starving artist was not for me. And so therefore I pivoted, and I really was looking for a career that married my love of creativity with my interest in business and, quite frankly, making money. And that was when I decided to try my hand in advertising. So this was circa 1998, and I decided to apply and, got hired at a small pharmaceutical advertising agency, which was all sorts of interesting.
Wow, and then I started very specialized too.
Oh, well, this was, again, dating myself. This was before direct-to-consumer advertising was out there. It was all trade stuff, and it was kind of funny because
we're the same age, so we're not dating ourselves.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I feel in good company, in good spirit. Yeah, so that was my foray, and I started there, and then I moved into, I sort of cut my teeth at an agency called Bates USA, and I did 3.5 years and kind of grew up and, had a lot of marketing and advertising experience there. And then after a number of different agency roles, I found my way into digital advertising, which was, kind of coming onto the scene at the time. And I worked at a company called Linkshare for 3.5 years. And then at the time, Google was in its infancy. This was, 2004, and people didn't know it in the way that they know it today. But I had a friend who had reached out and said, hey, this company Google is hiring. Would you be interested? And I said, yeah, sounds interesting, but I don't really know that I want to do client services. I'm interested in doing something else, but okay, I'll have a conversation. Well, I had a conversation which led to the next and to the next, and I was just completely blown away at the dynamicness of the people. And they were smart, and they were generous, and they were interesting, and they were interested. And I thought, you know what? I feel like I need to be a part of this. Yeah. And so the fun story, if you'll indulge me on this side note, is that, which is actually connected to finding your voice, is that my dad tried to convince me not to take the job. And I hold this over his head all the time, because he felt that I had a future at this company that I was at before. And, Google was an unproven entity, and, it was risky. And I said, listen, Dad, respectfully, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I think this is the right move. I feel good about it. And so that's what I did. And, 16 years later, and, lots of change and iteration and growth, and 2 babies and 2 cross-country moves. And, here I am. And I'm grateful.
So I love that, because we have we're not only similar age, we have similar, I started my career in nonprofit, then went into tech because that was the boom and they were hiring. I lived in DC. And then when I got recruited by a bank, I remember that sort of, you already have a good career, you're liking it, you've been to China. And I was like, no, gut told me to do it. So for you, was it that, when you heard that from your dad, was it like, I'm informed, I've got all the facts, I'm going with this is the right thing?
100%, 100%. I really, it's funny. Gut is a tough one, because I do think that the voices that we hear from other people can be very loud at times. Yeah. And so this was a time, though, and I'm not saying that, the gut has been the fail-safe every time for that reason. But this moment, there are moments in my life, and this was one of them, where it was so strong that I had no choice to say, I'm going to go this direction. So yeah, I think it's almost like a muscle, I would say, that you build over time, because I think a lot of noise can get in the way, and you really have to stay very focused on filtering the noise and focusing on what feels right and what seems right, and go with it.
Yeah, just exactly. And the worst that can happen is it doesn't work, and you can go back and rely on your reputation and the credibility and the skills you've built, plus the new skills that you're building. I think that's the biggest thing, as again, you hear those other voices, is not listening so much to that. Most of the time people say, develop your weaknesses and keep working on that. Some of it for me has been like, focus on your strengths. And part of that is knowing what you're good at too.
Oh, I could not agree with you more. I'm kind of over that whole, weakness thing. Yeah, maybe. Okay, fine. Like I tend to be, less operationally rigorous. Yeah. And so, I've definitely found ways of building that up. But at the end of the day, the thing that makes me sing, the thing that makes me happy, the qualities and the interests, those are the things that I'm going to continue to go for. Because you know what? Life is too short. Why do you want to be stuck doing stuff that you're not, you don't feel good about it? It's a strength for a reason.
Absolutely. So let's talk about now. Okay, you make the decision. You're off to the races at Google, super early in the Google world too, right?
Yeah.
What's been you've also had so many different sort of roles at Google, and Talk a little bit about that journey, because that's pretty rare, at a tech company. It's pretty rare nowadays, especially with the younger generations, as they think about, a long time at a job is 2 years. Actually, it's much less. You've been there for 16.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I am often reminded that as long as I've been there, there are definitely a couple other folks who've been there as long, if not longer. So I was just looking up somebody yesterday who'd been there for 18 years. Now, I would say there were fewer and farther between. And actually, it's funny, there's a site that you can go on internally to find out where you fall in terms of how many people started after you. And so, I'm in the 99% of people, right? So we're few and far between, but, you know, I, I will say that Google is an incredible company. I feel grateful for every opportunity along the way. And it's kept me going because of the diversity of experiences and because of the different roles and because of the evolution of and maturation of the company over the years. So, when I first started in 2004, we sold one thing. And now I can't even keep track of what we sell. I mean, in between, YouTube wasn't a thing, right? We were selling search, and that's what we did. And so I started I've been in the sales organization for the majority of my time. I recently did a stint when you and I met. I was just at the beginning of this I shifted into our people development organization for what's called the Bungee, to try on a new area of focus, and it was a really great experience. But started in sales before sales was organized around industries, so we were just regional, and years progressed, and I moved into a vertical, and then I moved on to at the time in 2007 we were formulating the agency team to support our ad agencies who, prior we didn't really need that because all we were selling was search, and agencies weren't buying search. Right. They certainly didn't know about it. And we realized as we were branching into new, monetization, new advertising models, that we needed, because of the power of ad agencies, we needed a sales force that could understand, and partner with them. And so, having come from the agency side, I said, I want to be a part of that. And I raised my hand and was one of the first agency leads on the West Coast at the time. I moved there for 3.5 years and helped sort of start that. And so then that evolved into being a regional, and then organized around holding company structure. And I shifted from, working on a portfolio onto a specific holding company. Then I moved into a different holding company. And then as well, we started to create specialties around the types of media that were being bought. So from brand to performance to programmatic. And so I did a sort of stint in a number of different roles there. So all throughout that time, shifting, evolving, pruning, finding new ways. And then, as you know, because we've talked about it, I do a lot on the side. I call it my side hustle in co-leading our women ad employee resource group, which is the largest in New York. We have, 25,000 women, 2,500 women who are sort of actively participating in our programming. And then I do a lot of facilitation of leadership development courses, which is what led me to this Bungee. And so, again, the reason that I stay and that I'm committed is through the opportunities to be able to have, a fulfilling main hustle, and then also to be able to give back through the side hustle. And I just, I enjoy the balance of the two.
And I know so many, I was doing that when I was at JP Morgan and then HSBC, and certainly when I started my career as a junior employee at Bank of America. But that is such a side hustle, right? You're passionate about the employee, the women, whether it's the Black community, Hispanic, Latinx, it becomes a second job, right?
Yeah.
And I know because you introduced me to women at Google, and I spoke to a bunch of your women earlier during the summer, and it was amazing the questions that, again, some of them were relatively new Googlers, some of them have been there for a while, but there is such passion around making sure we all have opportunities. So I want to talk a little bit about, you've had these opportunities to kind of move around. You certainly have a big advantage in that you were on the other side of the table when you were at an agency and then you were at Google, right? So I think that's a huge, again, skill. And we often say, like, when in banking, and for those of you that don't know, I spent 20 years in finance. When a treasurer of a company or a CFO became a banker, there was a great opportunity because you heard what that client was saying, right? And you could bring it in. As you developed over this, certainly early in your career, but at these 16 years, how important to you was having, and I know you do this, but sponsorship and mentorship within the company because it has grown so large?
Yeah. Mission critical. I can't say enough about it. And so much so that we at Google have invested, and I'll talk about it personally, but I should share that operating on the importance, the criticality of sponsorship, mentorship, and advocacy. We built an entire platform for our employees around that. It's a hub. I can't take any credit for it because it was built by an incredible team of folks that came from different, from the coaching team and from, people development. And so, a whole hub to help people to understand what are the differences between sponsorship and mentorship and coaching, and then how to take advantage of it and to understand what you need and when. And so, I'll tell you, Kate, it's one of those things that I think about often. And I will say that I feel like you can never have enough great sponsors. One of the things that I am specifically personally focused on right now is finding more of a diverse group of sponsors in my life. We all tend to go towards people that look like us, and that is just missing the mark. And so, in fact, I just had a call with a male. I would consider him to be a mentor and now probably a sponsor just yesterday, with the intention of building that, building that new sense of advocacy. We can't be talking to the same people, even though they might be more senior than us. You owe it to yourself to open yourself up to the possibilities within the universe by branching out into people who are different, right? And so that's something I'm a big believer in. And I will say that, I think there's a lot of great you leading conversations, within the industry, more people are talking about this now. But what I really want I would love to see women commit in a meaningful way to making sure that they're finding sponsors, and that they're finding sponsors that are diverse. And as many as possible. You hear these great leaders like Benita, who came in and spoke, who's brilliant. And she talks about this a lot, which is, she can talk about the sponsors that she's had throughout the years, many of whom have been men, and what they've done for her in her career. And, you also want to find somebody who's going to challenge you, to think differently, to ask different questions, who might be a contrarian too. I think we find, I remember one of my first sponsors, to this day, I just absolutely, I have this vision of her because she smoked back then in the ad. It was like Mad Men days. And she had these thin cigarettes, and it was like, and she would smoke these thin cigarettes, and she would take a drag, and she would sit there and she would think. And she was very different than me. She was a woman. She was a woman, and she was a white. She is. She's but she's a white woman. But she cognitively, the way that she thought and how she challenged was very different. And so, I think back to these moments of my life. But then the one that followed after my sponsor is an advocate early on in my career that I sought out, was very much like me and looked like me and acted like me and And as much as I appreciated her, it felt like I needed more and I should have sort of pushed myself for more. So my point is yes, yes, and yes.
Yep.
You know, there's so much out there to help you to identify who the right person is. But at the end of the day, it's all about connecting. It's just about reaching out to people. And what I always say is that, well, two things. One, people like to talk about themselves, so you don't have to worry about that. Right? I'm sure. Yes. And then the other thing was that, oh yeah, well, exactly, right? But the other thing is, okay, this is my pro tip for anyone you'll indulge me. Never reach out to somebody and ask to pick their brain.
Oh God, you and me are the same. I hate that.
Did we talk about this?
Yes. Oh my God.
Nobody wants their brain to be picked. Okay. Yes. Find an alternative. Okay. And my recommendation is read the book, The Curious Mind, I think it's called, by Brian Glazer, who's a producer in New York. And he talks about curiosity conversations. And that is the approach. You are curious. You want to engage with people. And people like people who are interested and interesting. So the other pro tip is come with an insight, an idea, an article, a book, something when you reach out to people. Give them something in return so that they don't feel like they're being, extracted, that their energy is taken out of them. Make it an energy exchange between the two of you. It is one of the best strategies that you could ever do. It has worked brilliantly for me in my career. I send books to people that I want to stay connected to, just something. You don't have to send, that's, I'm not advocating for spending your money willy-nilly. I'm just suggesting that you have something to give them as much as they have something to give you.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I say men like to hear themselves too and talk about themselves, and I don't mean any disrespect. It's just I grew up in finance, which was mostly right. And no, because I learned early on that I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to learn about their businesses, and whether you're in a small company or a large company, one of the best ways to get to know someone and for them to get to know you is to learn about their business and to learn about their versus, hey, tell me your story. Because, especially if they're senior, they have a very short amount of time. Yeah. So again, that energy exchange, that idea exchange, and again, come prepared. Don't just sit there. And again, we're on the same page. I really, the picking my brain, I don't have time for you to pick my brain. You can Google my story. Let's talk about what's your ask, you need help, and where can I get some? I also think that, listen, I mean, again, I spent so many years in finance. I had amazing and wonderful mentors. And when you talk about the contrarian view, we're often, especially women, hard on ourselves. And you don't want to hear the negative. You don't want to hear that you can't do it. But I will tell you, when I was at JP Morgan, I had been promoted to managing director, which was a big deal. And I had gotten a new job. And I went to my mentor, who also happened to run a simultaneous business. And I said, what do you think? And he said, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be, this is a big jump for you. And I was devastated. But he said, you can always go back and, you've just got to put everything into it. And from that moment, I literally just put everything into it. And I was proud to go back to him when that business was just rocking and rolling, to say, I'm doing it. And he said, I never had a doubt, but I had to give you something to make sure you worked your butt off. You learned everything you possibly could, and then you put that into execution. And I think that's important, that we listen to the voices that aren't always saying, you're amazing, Jen, you're amazing, Kate.
Oh, I love what you're saying. You are spot on. It's so hard. You're right. We're sort of primed to want to be liked and, culturally. However, there are people that don't grow up that way, and, they're more rooted in that approach. And so you should always be looking for the naysayers that are going to challenge you. Don't look for more people that are going to, it's like, there's this leadership mind trap where you seek people who are going to make you validate your rightness, but you want to have the contrarians in your proximity, because those are the people that are going to make you better.
Yeah. And
amen. Yeah.
different voices, right? And people that don't look like you. Again, when Benita, you were here when Benita spoke, and it's funny, she was just emailing yesterday. One of the things that, I raised was also as women, again, and we have a lot of women on here, but I also see some men, because there's a rarity in women in leadership positions, people are seeking out women, right? And that's great. But you also need men in that mentoring and sponsorship. Number one, it's really important to understand their voice and to have that, both genders. Number two, they're still major influencers in companies, in our paychecks, and in shaping policy. Yeah. So it's not just about, I got to find a senior woman or even a peer woman. It's about finding men too.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. I mean, there's so much talk about allyship, and, we're doing a lot. I love seeing some male execs stepping up and advocating for women and talking about diversity and all of that. It can't be, just women talking to each other and talking to ourselves. That's a known reality.
It's an echo chamber.
Yes. Well said. Well said.
Mm-hmm. I think, we have a couple minutes left, but as you think back to that early part of your career, and certainly as you made some moves, both externally when you made some jumps, but also as an entrepreneur, what is the best sort of piece of advice you could give, or that you've been given around taking that risk? Because I think there's also this, the greatness, I need to pick your brain, but there's also this, I got to take a risk to actually challenge myself and learn new things.
So two things, and the timeliness of this conversation is brilliant, because I literally just spoke to a sponsor yesterday, who filled me. He gave me this pro tip. So one of the two that I'm going to share, the first one, not his, was every couple of years, you got to switch it up. You got to do it. There's nothing good to be gained from playing it safe. There is nothing good to be gained from sitting and being comfortable. Move around. And, this is classic stuff, right? It's not a ladder, it's a jungle gym. At Google, titles are kind of funky. People that come, were CEOs and other companies come in as directors, it's just not the same. And so you really have to kind of put that stuff aside and figure out, like, what skill sets do I want to build? Who do I want to work with, quite frankly? Because so much of that is going to dictate the kind of experience you have. So go for that move every couple of years, switch it up, get the skill sets. And the second piece is, sort of dovetailing off what I was saying about roles, is what this mentor, a sponsor, said to me was, don't go for what's in the role, not what the role says, like what the title is, right? Everyone's like, oh, I need to be a VP. I need to be a this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, okay, that's cool. It's nice to get that recognition. But you know what? It's really, you really got to think about, what am I going to be doing, and how is that going to land, and what is that going to do for me? And everything is a step to the next, to the next, to the next. And I don't know what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of years. I'm just having fun. I'm getting paid well. I'm fulfilled. I get to do my side hustle. I get to be a mom. I have a dog. I got all this stuff going on in my life, and, I'm having a good time. And, of course I have career aspirations, but I'm also really intentional about, my time management. So, and I don't need to have, it's not about having a fancy title. So those are my two.
And I love that, what you just said about being intentional.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe early on in someone's career, it's probably, you're pounding the pavement, grinding, learning. But certainly as we get more and more senior, it's one of the reasons why I made the decision to quit a very successful, lucrative job in finance, never knowing that there was going to be a pandemic that would have almost put us out of business. Didn't yet. No. I think it's just, you have to also figure out, to your earlier point, around what's driving you, where you want to make impact. And again, Selena in the comments put, I love this because you said it a couple of times. Don't just confirm your greatness.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good.
There's one question that just came in, and then I'll let you off the hook. What if you took the risk and it didn't play out well?
I mean, nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So you just pivot, right? I mean, it's just like, you know, I wrote this down. Somebody said something. I'm probably not going to find it, but like, you either power through it, you either, we all have in our control you have a choice. You get up, you pick yourself up, and you pivot.
Yeah.
Or you suffer. Like, I don't want to suffer. Who wants to suffer? If you made the wrong decision, nothing is irreversible. Except for death and taxes, nothing is, right? Well, I don't know if that really works, but anyway, the point is nothing is irreversible. And so, you're your own agent. Make a change, right?
We had Deirdre Quinn, who's the co-founder and CEO of Lafayette 148 earlier this speaker series. And what she said, and I love it, and Sarah LaFleur has said it, is that you just keep going. You just keep swimming, right? Because there's no looking back, right? And the other thing that I would say, and it's Carolina who asked the question, is you, in that process where you've taken that risk, regardless of what happens, even if it doesn't play out well, what you're learning is just adding to your skills. Adding to your resume. It's also adding to building your network because it's something you've never done. And that shouldn't be underestimated as you go forward.
I could not agree with you more. And I think that is the arc of your story. It's a part of what you've done and how you've pivoted and what that did and where that led you to the next thing. So you might not have, if you didn't fail, or if it wasn't the right move, you may not have found the next thing. So it's all a part of that arc of your story, your narrative.
I love that. Well, just so everyone knows, Janice also does, and Luminary is the certified trainers of the hashtag I Am Remarkable training with 1 minute left, because we love facilitating that. You've facilitated that at Luminary before. Can you just, for anyone that's listening or watching, give us 1 minute why I Am Remarkable is so important?
Yes. So I Am Remarkable is a movement that empowers women and underrepresented groups to speak openly about their accomplishments, which thereby breaks the modesty norms in the work and glass ceiling. And it's important because, generally speaking, women have a harder time talking about their accomplishments than men. And in order to advance, in order to get people to know you, in order to network and all the things that we've been talking about, we have to talk about our accomplishments. And the last thing I'll say, this is always my spiel, is as long as it's done based on data and it's authentic and contextually relevant, there should be no negative connotation around talking about one's accomplishments. It is who you are and what you're about, and people need to hear it and hear it often. So that's what I Am Remarkable is.
And raise your hand so people know who you are. You need
exactly
that, especially now in this virtual world, right?
Indeed. Amen.
Exactly.
Amen, sister.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll see you soon in the Luminary space, but I wish schooling going well, and we will catch up separately. And thank you again. Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We've got a great lineup for Goaldigger for the rest of the fall. So stay tuned, same time next week, 9:30 Eastern. Sorry for the West Coasters, it's a bit early. But have a great weekend. Everyone stay healthy, stay safe, and enjoy the cool weather if you're here in New York. Take care. Thanks, Jen. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.